Doing it. We're live. Huh? How about
Yes.
those apples? What's up, everybody? Welcome to Status Coup. I'm wearing a dark shirt, so it kind of looks like I'm just a floating head. Uh, but welcome to Status Coup. I am filling in for Jordan Cheriton. I am Ron Placone. And joining me is the political vigilante himself, the Bitcoin political vigilante, Mr. Graham Elwood. If you want to play a drinking game throughout the show today, take a shot every time Graham figures out a way to incorporate Bitcoin into what we're talking about. And although
Yes.
don't do that. That might be it might be too dangerous.
I
Try
I
if you
know
dare.
I know I'm supposed to just like moderate my Bitcoin and Epstein talk when I go out in the world. So I'll just try to keep on task.
Oh, but you're on
Um,
the internet now.
oh man.
This is this is not the world.
This is not
You
no,
can you
this
cannot touch grass right now if you wanted to.
this is
Guys,
not the world. This is the indie media, which is not the real world at all. This is
no. But folks, we got a really cool show for you today. Well, I don't know if cool is the right word. There's a lot. The world is really struggling, and we're going to be talking about what's going on in the southeast, not just with Hurricane Helene, but also Atlanta decided that they had to have some big chemical fire happen. And we're going to start there. Then we're going to go to what's going on in Asheville and surrounding areas. This hurricane is not just in Florida, folks. It is in Asheville, North Carolina. It is in other parts of Western North Carolina. It is in parts of South Carolina. I have family that's affected by it. And it's in parts of Tennessee, too. I know I did a short on it if you got to check that out. Smash the like button. Smash it. Don't forget. You see the Chiron just right below my face there. You can smash the like button. Please do. Give us a super chat. We'll get to all your super chats at the end. We got Colin on the ones and twos. We're using a different streaming program than we normally use, and I don't like it as much. Now that's insider baseball. That really means nothing to you guys. But if something just seems a little weird or off, it's Ron is not using his streaming software of choice that he's also just very average at using at. So I guess he's going to be below average with this new thing. But we're doing it to it, folks. That's what we're doing. So let's go to Atlanta. Colin, let's start with that Vox article that kind of sets it up a little bit for anyone who's not familiar. A big fire at a lab near Atlanta spewed chemicals into the air. This is from a few days ago. This is basically the explanation that they're giving us so far. And I have a feeling there's going to be a little more negligence that comes to the surface here. That's just a guess. I'm not trying to be conspiratorial. I just feel like the explanation seems a little, is that all that caused this to happen? Kind of
Ron,
like
you're
in
so
East
cynical.
Palestine.
Ron, you don't trust a big chemical company and the government?
Right? I mean, it's like in East Palestine where we were given this official story, and then an investigation revealed, oh, also people were working 80-hour shifts with no break, stuff like that. Although we'll see, maybe this is all there is. But amid the devastation and mass flooding wrought by Hurricane Helene, the Atlanta metropolitan area had yet another disaster. A chemical fire released a massive plume of potentially toxic gases into the air, and it's spreading. So this happened early Sunday morning. A fire erupted at BioLab, a chemical plant specializing in pool and spa water care. This happened in Conyers, which is 30 miles east of Atlanta in Rockdale County. It's unknown what caused the fire as a publication, but local fire department officials. So I guess they are casting some doubt on this. They're not saying it totally definitively. They're claiming that water from a triggered sprinkler system had reacted with various chemicals in the building. I don't know. I mean, that just I feel like there's probably a little more to this. But anyway, so that's what happened. There is a big old fire going on right now. There's chemicals in the air. People are feeling like they're in a swimming pool when they walk outside. There are shelter in place orders in the places that are closest to where it happened. And somehow these shelter in place orders, you're going to be fine during working hours. Colin, can we go to that tweet really quick? It's the add to Atlanta tweet that I asked for. Can we go to that real quick? I want to show that. Oh yeah, this is wild. They're saying to shelter in place even if there's a strong odor. Something you could really know if you're exposed to the smoke plume, putting it to individuals here. Scroll down a little bit. It's only from wait, maybe this is the wrong. This might be the wrong one. Here, scroll down. Is it? Oh yeah, no, there it is. It's only 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Somehow during working hours, you're fine. During working hours, the plume can't hurt you. You can breathe it in all you want. It's totally fine. Go to work and shut up. But if it's between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., you might want to stay home.
Yeah, the plumes around, a lot of them are like gremlins. You just at night they get bad. So
Right. Yeah. And honestly, if you don't feed them before then, they might still be fine. Just don't feed them. Don't say red rum into a mirror before 7 p.m.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you just got to know that our government has all of our best interests at heart, and we're all protected and taken care of, and it's really great. And I'm sure the chemical company has not paid off any politicians to fudge on some regulations. I'm sure none of that has happened at all. I mean, there's no history of that. I'm just being a nutbag if I assume that. So, yeah, I mean, we just have to ask these questions now, because I'm sorry, I don't trust any government. I don't trust the local government. I don't trust the state government. I don't trust the federal government. And I know when I say that, then someone's going to, the Trumpers will go, yeah, we just got to get Biden out of there. Trump will.
We got to make it worse.
Yeah, we got to make it worse. I don't.
We got to take this bad situation and make it worse. That'll fix it.
I hate both of these parties. I hate Trump. I hate Harris. I hate Biden. I hate every president that has come down here, with the exception of Jimmy Carter and JFK. That's it. There's no, and even Carter was, had Zbigniew Brzezinski. So I just this government has failed. This country, we're on our own. We've talked about this. We talked about this 4 years ago during the pandemic. We all learned as Americans, we are on our own. We are on our own. And when we get in, I'm sure, to the next story, it's the same. We are on our own, man. Chemicals are just going to blow up, and they're going to lie to us and say it's fine. And we're just on our own.
That is the theme. I mean, it really is. Because, yeah. So let's go to some of the on-the-ground reporting that Jordan did. We got some clips for you. These are some interviews that Jordan did in the Georgia area. Because, here at Status Coup, there's this thing that goes on called firsthand journalism, where we go on the ground and talk to people on the ground. Crazy sentiment, I know. But let's check out some of that. See,
there are people that are still stranded. They're not getting help. They're stranded. They're landlocked. They're in floods. And FEMA, okay, so I did go up into Asheville yesterday. There's one way in and one way out. I actually made it up into Asheville and around into OT. And the damage, I mean, houses literally washed down the road, or they're covered. There's mudslides. But Asheville, there's so many dead bodies that you can smell it. The stench is becoming unbearable. Like, you can smell it. There are that many dead people.
Sorry about that, guys. We got a little bit ahead of the game there. That's actually the Asheville video. We're looking for the Georgia video. Asheville is the next.
So I work at the warehouse. So when I went to the warehouse where I work at, they told me the second manufacturer got closed because the smells start coming, which is, we are in the city of Covington where I work at, and Conyers. There are borders. They're about 20 miles, I work about 20 miles away from where I live. So as the time progresses and the days goes by, the smell just spreads all over. So when I went to the warehouse, I asked them, it's like, do you guys smell it? It's all over the Quick Trip, which is close to us. And they said, no. And then not 30 minutes away, 30 minutes after, everybody started smelling it at the warehouse.
Wow.
So, and it's still going on. It's
And
all over.
that warehouse is how far from the plant that has the fire?
We we are about 20 miles from the biolab where I work at,
Wow.
but we have a plant that closed immediately after the fire,
Right.
about a quarter miles away from it. We have two plants, so the one plant is close to it, about a quarter mile away.
And what are your thoughts on, just thinking common sense? Yesterday, this public alert was sent out from the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, so like Georgia's version of FEMA, basically saying that they're monitoring for chlorine and related compounds, and quote, chemical levels are unlikely to cause harm to most people. That sounds pretty damn premature to be stating that.
You know what, Jordan? I listen to you guys all the time. So, mostly about the East Palestine. You guys were talking about it, and you had an expert talk about it and all this. I was listening to it just before all this happened. And I told my neighbors, do not believe it. I screenshot this and send it to them. And I said, like, it's good for the warning, but do not believe it.
That plume was quite incredible. That was an incredible looking plume.
Also, as a side note, he had mentioned during that interview that how he sounds with that rasp and all that is new
Yeah.
since this happened. He actually doesn't sound like that normally.
Wow.
Right. But it's harmless. Yeah, it's harmless though. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to look at that plume and tell me it's fine. I mean, if that's a plume, if that's just typewriter paper burning, it's not going to be safe outside, let alone a chemical plant. I mean, this is just unbelievable. I mean, I don't know what,
especially
more...
at a time where so many places in the area are underwater. The Southeast is going through so much right now that Atlanta goes, "Hey, hold our beer. We weren't really hit by the hurricane. We just got a little bit of rain, but don't worry, corporations could make something terrible happen."
Yeah.
Even though technically they made this other thing happen too, because it's because of climate change. But let's go to Colin. Let's go to the 11 Alive piece that talks about basically what people can do and what an environmental expert has said. So Conyers chemical plume. Here's what an environmental experts say, and here's what they say Georgia residents should do next. The EPA has detected chlorine in the air. Oh, yeah, it's harmless, though. Around biolab, but details such as concentration, blah, 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 blah. An EPA official on Monday said it's continuing to run quality tests, has not yet found concerning levels of chemicals. The company is required to submit a safety data sheet. And don't worry, they're gonna hold themselves accountable. 11 Alive senior investigative reporter sat down with Dr. Andrew Welton of Purdue University to talk about what concerns people may have. For months, Welton assessed the damage after the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. And although they're vastly different incidents, the chemical and environmental experts said it's important for Georgians to remember they're allowed to ask questions about chemicals released into the atmosphere when situations like these arise. And you may or may not get right or wrong answers. So this is interesting. If you're in an evacuation area, you should be concerned. You should not be in that area. If you're outside the evacuation area and you smell chemicals, you have a right to be concerned. You have a right to then encourage emergency management officials to explain to you what exactly is happening and why you are allowed to be where you are. Welton added that if and when it's clear for residents to return home, they should be calling their home insurance companies to see if they will pay for an in-home testing of the carpet, walls, and soil, emphasizing that the treat for our health isn't limited to when chemical fires are seen. So basically, you're at the mercy of your insurance company if something happened potentially to your home, and no one else is going to do jack about it. You can be damn sure the company's got to do a thing about that. So, I mean, if you got good home insurance, good for you. If you don't, you're SOL. And in many ways, you're going to be SOL anyway. It's just incredible.
And of course, again, the chemical company is going to deny it. Their lawyers are already working to figure out how to get out of this. And this is when it's like, we need more deregulation. It's good for business. Okay. So now there's no regulation And so how is this company going to be held accountable? What's going to happen? I mean, and however many politicians they paid off, those politicians will make sure in the Georgia State Assembly, or whoever they paid off, I'm sure they paid off somebody. They put money in somebody's pocket to where they're not going to be, no one's going to do any jail time. Nothing is going to be really done. Politicians will give some speeches in Georgia, and we got and a congressman or someone will say something, and nothing will get done. Because corporations, this is not a representative democracy. This is a kleptocracy run by oligarchs. And this is what the American people get. And it doesn't matter if you're in a red state or a blue state. It doesn't matter. You're screwed either way. It's just a different type of getting screwed over.
Well, and in this case, even if they didn't have anybody locally in their pocket, which they probably got a judge or something, but even if they didn't, they still have so much power that they'd
Yeah.
be able to hold their own. So this is one of those lessons at who really runs this freaking place. And this is what happens when you just let corporations do whatever they want and you have no protections for people whatsoever. This is what happens.
Yep.
And it's going to be the same playbook as East Palestine. They did the same thing. They didn't help any people. They just left them there. They told them it was safe. It wasn't. People are still suffering. Their property is basically worthless now. They're getting sick. I mean, you can see the coverage here at Status Coup, which, by the way, was one of the only outlets in the freaking world that stayed on the story. You know, the corporate media didn't bother reporting on any of this. And the same thing is happening here. So, guys, please, if you are able, please become a member here at Status Coup. Just status2.com/join. That helps fund on the ground journalism, talking to people that are on the ground, going on the ground, which Status Coup has done repeatedly. This was the only outlet that covered the UAW strike for its entirety, to the point where they even sent me in there with my clown shoes, man. It was an amazing experience too, but we were there for the duration of the UAW strike. John Farina was there all 25 days. He became an unofficial resident of Detroit. Power to him. But
Jordan was one of the only people who kept covering Flint, Michigan.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I mean,
pretty
which
much
is still happening.
And he's got a book about it now. Which I can't wait to read. I've not read it yet, but I'm looking forward to reading Jordan's book on Flint. But yeah. So that's what's going on in Atlanta. Let's go. We're going to stay in the Southeast for a little bit, and then we're going to talk smack on the VP debate. Don't worry. There's going to be some smack talking on the VP debate. I know you're waiting for it. We got to go to the Southeast first, which I'll give a quick up. So for those of you who saw my short video, I did a video on the hurricane. I mentioned that I have family in South Carolina who's been impacted by this. For those of you who saw that video, I'll give an update. They still do not have power. They are in the Greenville, South Carolina area. They, as of right now, do not have power still. Other buildings in the area do, so they're able to get some power when they need it. But they themselves do not have power because there's a lot of trees down and so forth. And they were not hit as hard as, say, Asheville, North Carolina, which let's go to that video footage now.
There are people that are still stranded. They're not getting help. They're stranded. They're landlocked. They're in floods. And FEMA, okay, so I did go up into Asheville yesterday. There's one way in and one way out. I actually made it up into Asheville and around into OT. And the damage, I mean, houses literally washed down the road, or they're covered. There's mudslides. But Asheville, there's so many dead bodies that you can smell it. The stench is becoming unbearable. Like, you can smell it. There are that many dead people. Wow. It's bad. It's very, very, like, I can't describe to you how bad it is.
And when you say FEMA, is it that FEMA can't get into certain areas, or FEMA isn't doing enough?
They're not doing enough. Where I went to, we had family members in Asheville. We got to the house. They said that FEMA was there, asked what they needed. There's 2 babies in the house. asked what they needed. They said, we need water and formula. They left, never came back. How long are babies supposed to wait on formula? How long are people supposed to wait on water? How long are they supposed to wait? So they were there. They know what they need. Where are they? You know, we saw emergency vehicles riding around. We had to get into Asheville. We drove over live power lines and under fallen trees to get to our family members. The people are helping the people. The people are helping the people. But here's another problem. So they're telling people to donate to FEMA, not to bring supplies in, to donate to FEMA, and FEMA's got it under control. That is not the case. FEMA does not have it under.
Wow. Wow. So that is Asheville, North Carolina, which, by the way, friendly reminder to everyone, Asheville, North Carolina is nowhere near the coast. It is not a coast. It is
In the
hours from the
mountains.
coast. It is in the mountains. It is one of those places that you're told is one of the better places to be for climate change. Climate change affects everyone. This isn't, oh, I'll just go up on a hill. I'll be fine. No, you freaking won't. Oh, I'm not in the global south. I'll be fine. No, you won't. This affects the world.
So I have family in Charlotte and Raleigh, Durham, and they're okay. Those areas didn't get hit. They had some flooding and some power outage, but they're doing okay. And then I talked to a childhood friend of mine that's in Asheville yesterday. And, you know, he said similar to what the woman that was interviewed by Jordan said. He goes, everyone's helping each other out. He goes, that's the one silver lining, is the community's really, rallying around each other. And I saw this when I'm a disaster volunteer for the American Red Cross. I went to Maui last summer and I saw the Maui people really coming together and, donating to FEMA. That blows me away. I mean, I'm going to make a real distinction here. But some people think FEMA and the American Red Cross are two different organizations. FEMA is a federal organization. It should not be getting donations. It should be funded by the United States government, unless it's busy sending its money over to Ukraine and Israel to do a genocide. The American Red Cross is a non-for-profit that gets 97% of its money through donations from the American people. And the American Red Cross can only go somewhere when a local government says, hey, we want the Red Cross to come here. The Red Cross isn't they're not responders. They're not firefighters or EMTs. They're just trained volunteers to help with food, clothing, and shelter after a disaster. But FEMA is it's the Federal Emergency Management Association, or whatever it's called, whatever that stands for. But the F in FEMA is federal. So they're federally funded. And for FEMA to not be there is inexcusable. And I was talking to my friend, and he goes, Graham, and he's lived in Asheville with his wife and his kids for 20 some years. And he goes, prior to this, the worst flood was in 1916. And everyone always talked about, the 1916 flood, and it's the record flood. He goes, Graham, this flood shattered that record, shattered it. And he goes, there's whole communities wiped out. There's whole, and I've, you and I have been to Asheville. We've both been there. We did a show there. We've both been there separately as well. And, he's kind of explaining to me down by the river is those areas got wiped out,
the whole riverfront,
gone.
The River Arts district just got floored. I mean, wiped out.
Wiped out. I mean, he said his home was okay. They're sort of up on a ridge a little bit, but, I go, is there anything I can send you? And he jokingly said, a toilet. He goes, Graham, I haven't taken a shower. Our power's back, but I haven't taken a shower in days.
Wow.
We're having to use outhouses. I mean, we don't have indoor plumbing right now. And, that's pretty gnarly thing to think about. And I said, he goes, Graham, you really get to see this is a third world country, the way it's being handled. I mean, we're, and he kind of laughed. He's like, Joe Biden's supposed to fly over in his helicopter tomorrow, which would be today. And apparently the roads, they don't want to bring the motorcade in because there's only one road in and out for supplies. But it's just sort of and he goes, no one's talking about the election. He goes, prior to this, everyone was talking about the election and who they're going to vote. And he goes, and everyone's like, whatever election, we're doomed. I mean, because, Asheville and I guess North Carolina is sort of a blue or purple state or whatever you'd call it. Asheville's pretty, liberal, and I'm sure a lot of people were going to vote, but they're all sitting there going, well, Joe Biden is the president and this is our response, and Harris is the vice president and this is our response. So, I mean, they're just like, now he didn't say anything about the smell of dead bodies, as that woman said. That never came up in our conversation. So, I can't comment on that. And I mean, that sounds awful and I wouldn't surprise it. But he said, Graham, this is yesterday. He goes, there's 40 confirmed casualties, goes, but there's a lot of missing people. And so the number that I know what that means, that number is just going to keep going up, But he said whole mountain community towns just got wiped out. I mean, because of the path of Helene. And again, as you said, they're a couple 100 miles in from the coast. I mean, and up in a mountain. And so, it was, I mean, he was really like, man, I don't know. I mean, climate change, it's worse. And then he goes, this country feels like there's no like real support anymore. I don't know. I mean, so I was like, wow. And that happened. And then the longshoremen go on strike. And if that drags out, we're not really feeling it yet, but in a week or so, if this strike is still happening in 2 weeks, the whole country is going to be having supply issues and store shelves are going to be empty. And how are they going to get supply? I mean, like, that's going to be tough on areas that haven't been impacted by a disaster, let alone areas like North Carolina. I mean, what, and now Georgia, like, what are we going to do? And I have no confidence in whichever one of these idiots gets elected in November. None. I mean, it's just which version of us getting screwed. If Trump's elected, it's going to go full on fascism and nothing will get done. And he'll just say, I'm number one, I'm the best. If Harris gets elected, they'll pass a bunch of little Band-Aid Mickey Mouse laws, but nothing will get done. There'll be complete fascism on a tech side. They're just going to censor anyone who doesn't agree with them. That's what they've been doing. Like liberals think they're so open-minded until somebody disagreed with them, and then they just shut them down. And the liberals are the first people to like chuck the First Amendment out the window. And I have no confidence. And I'm like, and we're on the brink of World War III in the Middle East. And I'm sitting there going, if we get into a full-on war, I don't want either one of these people in charge. I have no confidence in either one of them or either of their administrations or either one of their corrupt parties running anything.
So you're saying that if there were to be a conflict, cop or Nazi wouldn't be your first choice to handle it?
No, not my top two choices, cop or Nazi.
Interesting.
No.
Interesting.
Weird, yeah.
Well, that sounds you're a purist. No, dude. I mean, this is nuts, and yeah, I mean, when you hear from people that are going through this, you can't help but have that reaction where you're just like, how is this the richest country in the world? And the response is this. And here's something else I'll say, because we're going to transition into talking about the VP debate. This is right now, from a political standpoint, whoever shows up, if either of them do, and I have a feeling neither of them are going to, because I don't think either one of them have the foresight to do so. But I remember in 2016, there was some random thing that happened I think it was a shooting in a subway or something random that happened in New York City that really made a national splash. And Trump was acting like he was already president, speaking about it. Like he was holding press conferences. He was right there in New York. I mean, he spends a lot of time there, so that wasn't hard for him, but he was right there in New York, and Hillary was nowhere to be seen. And when that happened, I said, Trump's going to win. Trump is going to become president. People thought I was crazy, and then Trump won. So right now, I'll call this. Whoever actually shows up, whether it's Kamala or Trump, whoever really shows up and sounds like a leader, that person will be president. It might be neither one of them, in which case it's still up for grabs. But if one of them does, whoever does it, I think will win in November. And that's just me talking objectively. That person will become president in November.
I mean, there's other evidence to support your claim. In 1992, when the Rodney King riots happened in Los Angeles, it was a presidential election year. So George Herbert Walker Bush, George Bush Sr., was the president, and every single Democratic candidate running, the Democrats were still having their primary. So it was Clinton, it was Gore, it was what's his name, Brown, who became the governor of California.
Jerry Brown,
right? They all beat George Bush Sr. to LA. They all got here before him.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, like to your point, it looked really bad. And Bill Clinton was down there on the streets giving speeches saying this ain't right. And this is what 12 years of Reaganomics gives us. You know, like he's a politician. I don't like Bill Clinton, but to your point, he won the primary and he won the election. And so, you know, this was
and people thought he was going to be a diversion from all that. And, you know, he wasn't. And did you ever think about that we might be infinitely better off, or might have been infinitely better off in the long run if Clinton never won?
Yes.
Because it's like if Bush was terrible. I mean, both of them, but George H.W. was terrible. But if that dude would have gotten a second term, it would have been a freaking train wreck. And I think it would have been to the point where no Bush ever would have gotten into the White House again, which means the worst president of all of our lifetimes would not have been elected. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think about that. I'm like, man, what if Clinton wouldn't have won and then
opened the doorway to 8 years of liberals going to brunch, which is what happened under Obama. They're just going to sleep thinking and not paying attention. I mean, that's what like Clinton opened the doorway to, is just everything's fine. I won't pay attention. I'll just show up every 4 years and say Republicans are bad and cast my ballot. I mean, but to your point though, whoever does show up in Asheville, I mean, Joe Biden flying overhead, that's a bad look. That's like, imagine, and my buddy was like, oh, great, the president's like, you're sitting there, you haven't showered in 4 days. Let's just put yourself in my friend's shoes or this other woman's shoes.
Helicopter waving.
Yes, and just the helicopter's going to fly. I haven't showered. That other woman is smelling dead bodies. You don't have water. You're brushing your teeth with bottled water. You're wondering where help is going to come. And then some loud,
I'm here, peasants.
Like, what the fuck? What is he going to throw Snickers bars out the window? Like
he's going to throw cake. He's going to let them eat cake. He's going
like some radio giveaway. He's just going to throw Frisbees out of there, some shit. Like, what is he going to do?
What if they, like, you know, that little container that they put the Pope in? What if there was a helicopter and then they just like dropped him down in one of those containers? He's just swinging around from a rope, like, I see you. You are in my thoughts and prayers. And they just bring him back up.
It's just like, I would be furious if that helicopter went over my house and I, especially just if I was in that situation that my friend is, or if I lost somebody or I had family members missing, I'd be throwing rocks at that goddamn helicopter. I would be like, fuck you. I'm sorry. I'm just like, it's
infuriating. It is infuriating. And Kamala, especially,
what's she gonna do? I mean, Trump, you're right. He was smart enough in 2016 to do that. And he, you know, Kamala's going to go. Has any of them showed up? Where are they?
Not as of the recording of this. No, I mean, nobody is doing anything. It didn't come up much in the debate. In the VP debate, it barely came up. Climate change barely came up. But they talked about, I mean, it's amazing. Well, we're going to get to it. But there were certain parts of that debate that were just, it was amazing to me. Like I had to pinch myself because I'm like, is it really this bad? Is it really this ridiculous? Is this our political climate in the United States? And in many ways, it's worse than it ever has been in my lifetime. And it just keeps eroding.
It's so bad the two Trump debates, the one with Biden and the one with Harris, were so bad that last night was like, oh, this is kind of a civil debate. Like last night, by comparison, seemed really good, and last night was awful. Like it was, they were civil with each other, and they said, oh, I agree with this guy a lot, and they were all nice and everything. But again, it's the same. They talk about nothing. Like the Harris Trump debate, I felt like I was watching a Republican primary debate.
Yeah.
Like, there's no real left in this country anymore. There's none. There's no left. I mean, you know.
Well, electorally, there never has been, but, or at least not for a very, very long time. But yeah, I mean,
there's no real opposition party. There's just these two shades of kleptocracy. That's it.
Yeah.
Of fascist kleptocracy. That's it. You just get two versions of this. It's two sides of this corrupt kleptocratic coin. That's it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm watching the debate and I'm just like, I will say this, JD Vance didn't come across as dumb as the media makes him out to be. Like,
he's not dumb. He's evil.
Yeah, he's evil. Sure.
Yeah. He's evil as fuck. And that was also frustrating to me. Because, you know, Tim Walz is Mr. Nice Guy, and he wouldn't sniff out these dog whistles to the point where it made JD Vance sound reasonable, and he's not. He's not reasonable. You know, I mean, this is part of like the dangerous freaking tread that we're on, where, you know, you have this, you know, pipeline progressive in Tim Walz. You know, it's like, oh yeah, he's real, you know, he's progressive unless you're talking about pipelines or foreign policy or, you know, this or that. And look, I'm still glad she didn't pick Shapiro. I'm still glad that, you know, it wasn't Shapiro, and Tim Walz is not as bad as Shapiro would have been. But man, you got to take your gloves off in a debate, dude. And he just didn't. So let's go to it. Let's go to the debate. We got some highlights here generated by Colin on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. Smash the like button if you haven't yet. Smash it up. And we'll go to the super chats at the end. Please do leave us some super chats. We'll get to all of them at the end. Colin, I'll need some assistance because this is not the streaming software I'm used to. So I'm confused by the chat. But yeah, so let's go to our first debate clip.
And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, you know, I one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do.
The question got asked, and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a very real chance, had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today. That's why the restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris talk about this subject and you hear me talk about it, you hear us talking exactly the same. Donald Trump is trying to figure out how to get the political right of this.
I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law. It says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think,
That's
whether
not
you're
true.
pro-choice or
That's not how the law
pro-abortion,
is.
that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given
But how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own.
It was amazing to me. And look, credit where it's due. At least he pushed back a little bit. Tim Walz pushed back on a little bit about just the nonsense about that law that J.D. Vance was spewing. At least he pushed back on that, I guess, because it's a law in his state, so he's got to. But it was incredible to me. I mean, look, and by the way, I support, I support a woman's rights to choose. I was very disturbed when Roe v. Wade got overturned. We need Roe v. Wade back. I support that 110%. But man, I couldn't help feeling with everything going on in the world, and there was so much abortion talk, and you just thought, wow, it's like nothing's happened in 20 years. And the right has the same talking points. It hasn't changed in 20 years.
This is the deliberate distraction of the two-party system. They spent so much time on abortion to go, see, there's a big difference between these two parties that both love fracking, both love funding genocide, both don't care about the working class. Like, they need this one issue. And what else? These moderators didn't fact check anybody. Like, another thing that drives me absolutely nuts is, first of all, nobody says to the Republicans, wait, aren't you the party of get the government out of our business? Then why are you inside a woman's vagina? Like, shut up. And then two, hey, Democrats, you talk about protecting Roe v. Wade. Nancy Pelosi in May of 2022, when the SCOTUS leak came out, was actively, the day it came out, was campaigning for Henry Cooler, the anti-abortion Democrat. Like, go down the list of Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't want to step down. Who is Hillary's running mate in 2016? Oh, anti-abortion Democrat Tim Kaine. Like, I'm sick of the Democrats playing. They've done nothing to protect Roe v. Wade, and then they act like, oh, the Republicans are at it again. Like, shut up.
Obama promised to codify Roe v. Wade first thing when he got into office. He didn't. And by the way, yes, he did say that. People try to say, oh no, he never actually said that. Yes, he did. He said it in 2007. He said, if I was ever president, first thing I would do is codify Roe v. Wade. Look it up. Yes, he did. So yeah, it was amazing to me. And again, it's like, I'm not suggesting it's not an important issue. It absolutely is. But when you see just the same, it is like they use it as a wedge. They have the same recycled talking points, the same propaganda, all coming from a Koch think tank. And then J.D. Vance just spews it out. No one's going to call him on it. It's just so sad to see. And then, what didn't really come up much in this debate? Well, there wasn't much talk about climate change. There wasn't the foreign policy talk was from a very skewed, limited perspective. And it was just so frustrating to see.
They barely talked about climate. They barely talked about what's happening in North Carolina. They didn't talk about the fact that a longshoreman strike just started yesterday.
Yep.
They didn't talk about, like, the whole eastern seaboard, ports are shut down, which is going to cascade across the whole country in a matter of days. By day 6, 7 of this, the whole country is going to feel it. By day 10, oh man, by day 14, there's going to be like people taking guns to the grocery store. We're 2 weeks away from just like anarchy and they're just sitting there like, well, women's rights, the Democrats want to eat babies, and like they're just saying this. I mean, it's not 20 years, Ron. I've heard this for 4 decades. My first election I voted in was 1980. I've heard, I mean, literally, you just close your eyes. I feel like I'm watching Reagan debate Dukakis in 84. Like it's the same nonsense that these two filthy, disgust. I hate these parties. I hate them so much. And when people go, if you vote for Jill Stein, you're taking a vote away from Kamala Harris. Yeah, I know. That's how voting works. That's how elections are. Yep, there's only a certain number of votes. And Harris is trying to take votes away from Trump. Trump's trying to take votes away from Harris. And Jill Stein and the Libertarians are trying to take votes away from both of them. So Cornel West is trying to take votes away. That's how voting works. You don't get to vote more than once. So that's how it works. I'm sorry this is so complicated for you to understand. You dipshit liberal, you college-educated liberals are the biggest morons. They're worse than the cult MAGA idiots. And the MAGA people are a certain brand of stupid. But the liberals, I don't know what when you give them information, they just go, nope. They don't want to hear it. Just like the dipshit Trump supporters.
Like
They're
every 4 years. Every 4 years. Like, this is what the electoral college is. They're like, nope.
No.
I need to blame leftists for everything.
Yes. People are like, Graham, I live in California. I'm going to vote third party again. California will vote for Harris. California will vote for whatever. They would vote for Pete Buttigieg's fucking shoehorn if that was the nominee, right? Running as a Democrat. So
well, I think that's up for Los Angeles mayor, I think. His shoehorn. He's staying in Indiana, but his shoehorn might hold down the fort in LA.
I realized who JD Vance is. He's just a Republican Pete Buttigieg. Like they're the both same psycho ex-military sociopaths.
That's a good analogy, actually.
Right?
Yeah. That's pretty good. He's a Republican Pete Buttigieg, which, by the way, Pete Buttigieg might as well be a Republican.
Yes.
So he's
Vance is a Marine. Buttigieg is an ex-naval intelligence officer, and they both give that folksy, I'm a working class man. Oh God, this top of it was like, oh great, everybody.
Oh, the top was so insufferable. Colin, is that on our list of clips, by the way? We should get to another clip.
Another Scranton
which clip?
talk.
Is the very top of the debate where they asked a question about Israel, which was like a totally.
I have the Israel clip, yeah.
All right, let's watch that next. That was an epic moment. They were just like his answer.
Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, do you care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Where do we begin? I mean, is this the time where the American aircraft flew into Iranian airspace and we said it was international?
Saluted. Yeah. Oh my God, dude. I mean, that whole first moment. I mean, Tim Walz basically just went on a tirade. They basically asked him a foreign policy question, which was a bullshit baited foreign policy question. His response was just Trump sucks. And then JD Vance's response was, look, I'm a folksy guy who grew up working class. I swear to God, I'm not creepy. Also, Trump's dope. And then they just went back and forth on that. It was unreal. It was absolutely unreal.
Well, they were both Walz and Vance were both trying to out folksy. I mean, I'm a football coach
Yeah.
who just hunts pheasants with a shotgun. You know, meow, 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 meow. Shut the fuck up. Like, I'm so sick of you assholes. Like, fuck your red and fuck your pink tie and your pink tie to appeal to women. Like, I know their marketing team when women hate this guy, so give him a pink tie. And then JD and Walt's just like, oh, I'm just making casseroles in Minnesota while I'm supporting pipelines. Like, shut the fuck up. God, these guys are assholes. I fucking hate these two parties. And this country's so fucking stupid. This country willfully does this. The American has a memory that goes back about 6 weeks. I
Oh, that's
understand
being generous. 6 weeks?
Yeah, I know.
Dude, 48 hours. Come on.
I understand why George Carlin's last couple of specials weren't really funny. They were just mean, saying he hopes people die, because he was so fed up with the human race and mainly Americans from just swallowing bullshit, willfully drinking bullshit.
I love those last couple specials. It's like they want you just smart enough to push the paper, but not being willing to see the red, white, and blue dick that's fucking you in the ass. That was brilliant. That was brilliant. And then he did that in Vegas. He did that. He was going. They were like, "Hey, it turns out people don't want to hear this." And he goes, "Well, then put me in a smaller room. I don't give a shit."
Yep.
There's a guy who went down kicking and screaming. George Carlin went down kicking and screaming.
That I'm not changing who I am, and he's right. And anyone that disagreed with him is the people that disagree with guys like George Carlin. They just don't like hearing the truth. That's the thing about America too. Having spent a lot of time just this year in other countries, in El Salvador, and then I was in Asia for 3 weeks. The rest of the world is like, you guys are nuts. And here's the thing, everyone, like, Americans do not want to know how the sausage is made. They don't want to hear it. Conservatives don't want to hear it. Liberals don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. It's like liberals who, when you say, Obama dropped more bombs than Bush. Well, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Oh, wow. You're out of your mind with delusion. And the conservatives, like, at least we didn't get to hear Kamala Harris is a communist. No, she's not. She's a pro-war corporate neoliberal nightmare. And she's not a communist. She's a fascist, just like Donald Trump.
You know the candidate I would love to vote for? I wish I could vote for the Kamala Harris the right says she is. I wish that person was. I would vote for that person so hard. There's like, yeah, she's a socialist. Really? Great. Like, wow. It's hilarious, the stuff that they say. She's a Marxist. Like, okay, that's what a fantasy. I mean, what a freaking fantasy. She's a cop. That's what she is. She's a cop, and Trump's a Nazi.
The same liberals that were like, Dick Cheney's a warmonger. Now Dick Cheney's on our team. You're out of your minds.
Isn't that amazing?
You're out of your minds.
We got a big wide tent. Still no room for lefties, but we got Dick Cheney now.
Yes.
So you might want to be careful in the tent because he might start firing a gun everywhere. Be careful if there's a pheasant walking around.
Yeah.
But Dick Cheney's in the tent now.
It's unbelievable. Like, it's Americans will keep swallowing this up. And guys like you and I will be blamed.
It's amazing. But I mean, I was in London recently, and yeah, I do got to say, whenever you leave the country, it really helps my mental health because I don't feel as nut. Because it's like when you're here in the United States, even people that I think are relatively intelligent people that just, swallow this binary bullshit and don't see through it. And I'm just like, do you not see what's really happening here? And they're like, well, and I'm like, what do you? And then you go to other places and they're just, man, you guys, holy shit. Do you realize yeah, I do. Like, okay, well, I'm glad somebody, holy shit. And you just feel a little less alone because you realize, okay, so the entire world sees this.
It's
the rest of the industrialized world sees this.
All of them.
We just don't.
I mean, I always say this about America. It's like living in a cult, or it's really where everyone in the cult is like, no, it's great. And you're like, this is insane. And then you're gaslit in America by but I say this, America is a nation of addicts, and being around active addicts, addicts are in abject denial. Like, dude, you have a serious drinking problem. No, I don't. The cop kept fucking me. Really? 3 DUIs? 3 DUIs. All 3 times the cop fucked you? Like, the boss had it out for me. You showed up to work drunk. You were drunk. You were pissed yourself at the Christmas party. Like, you have a problem. Man, stop telling me how to live. And then you're the bad guy for saying you need help. And that's what America is. It is living in an insane asylum of addicts and cult members where they make you feel crazy. America, you go outside and they go, the sky's green. And you go, no, it's blue. And they're like, oh, you fucking blue sky, dude. And you're like, I'm looking at it right now. It's blue. And that's what America is. The whole country gaslights you. The Trump people are the dumbest people in the world. A college-educated liberal Democrat, they're the dumbest, craziest bunch of idiots. And there's no hope for this country at all.
Should we go to another clip?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's go to another clip, Colin.
What about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
What a
Look,
stupid
we
question.
fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this, and Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said, it's not true, don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
That's bullshit. That is bullshit. I mean, you know what, man? Civility has its fucking place, but when you're going to normalize, which is what Tim Walz did. Tim Walz just normalized what J.D. Vance did. Because he wants to, I mean, you know, there's a time and place for civility, but other times it's the last refuge of the fucking scoundrel. And that's what it was here. To normalize the stuff J.D. Vance has done, to not call out one of the most frustrating moments for me in that debate was when J.D. Vance started repeating stuff like peace through strength. That is something out of the fucking Nazi playbook. That's literally what that is, because the slogan is strength through peace. And that's a left-wing slogan that's been around a long time. Dennis Kucinich used it at one point in 2008. And he's just sort of flipping that to make it sound like he's some kind of ally. I mean, that's the same thing. That's literally something out of the Nazi playbook. And I hate to, you know, do that comparison because it's so overdone, but it's the frickin' truth in this case. That's literally what he's doing. And no one called him out on it. Tim Walz didn't say shit. And here he is saying, oh, I think J.D. Vance, what's this? No, he doesn't. He willingly repeated all that stuff. He didn't care who he endangered. Stop normalizing this frickin' guy.
I know.
I mean,
well, the other thing too with immigration that drives me nuts, again, there's this huge elephant in the room. Like, well, Obama was called the deportator in chief. Like, he built the cages. Then Trump put him in the cages. They're still in cages. Like, and no one. This is what was driving us like screaming this on Twitter. Gee, why does anyone? This isn't going to happen from the corporate media, nor are these two corrupt morons going to say this. Are we going to talk about how America sanctions all these countries, goes after countries that for the resources, and then creates a war, and we create all of these refugees and migrants? America creates this problem, and then acts like, and then blames the other party for it. And it's just like no one at the debate stage, not the two moderators with their 7- and 8-figure salaries and their $2,000 pantsuits, not those two clowns on stage. Nobody wanted to talk about how America creates this problem. Like, no one who wants to walk 1,000 miles. 1,000 miles is the equivalent of walking from Los Angeles to Portland, Oregon. Would you want to do that dangerously with a backpack and you don't know there's bandits along the way? Would you want to do that? would anyone want to leave their home? No. So why are they leaving their home? Because it's been made so bad. Oh, it's crazy people like Maduro. I'm not some Maduro fan, but we go after Venezuela's oil. That's why we're destabilizing that country. We've created so many migrants from the Middle East to Latin America, and then we play the innocent victim. Oh, everyone wants. I'm so sick of America causing these problems. I'm so sick of it. It's a 300-pound person blaming McDonald's. No, McDonald's ain't great. It's not. It's your fault. Like, I'm so sick. When is America ever going to look in the mirror and say, this is our fault? We created this.
Yeah,
it's never going to happen.
It's an easy scapegoat. It's easy to scapegoat the poor brown person. It's easy to scapegoat the climate refugee, and that's what they're doing again. And both of these candidates were like, "I'm going to be horrible about the border. No, I'm going to be horrible about the border. No, I'm going to be horrible about the border." It's a freaking scapegoat. It's a BS talking point. In reality, the people coming across the border are desperate. They're climate refugees in most cases. You know what I'd be interested to see? I'd be interested to see the other way. Why don't we talk about the people going across the border to get freaking dental care? Because it's not affordable in the U.S., so they're going to Mexico to get dental care, where they're getting good dental care at an affordable price. How about the people who are freaking leaving? There's
a thing called medical tourism.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. It's a huge industry.
That whole conversation was just based on a load of bullshit. It was just based on pure bullshit, pure racist bullshit. And, when you got two sides willing to play into it, then the Overton window shifts further and further to the right. And it's hard to imagine that in 2028, if there is a freaking presidential election, there will be two candidates to the right of what we have now. There will be a Republican candidate to the right of Donald Trump. There will be a Democrat candidate to the right of Kamala Harris. It's hard to even imagine. But that's the trajectory we've been on for 40 freaking years at least. And and then you just have these people doing political freaking fan fiction in their head, whether it's making Tim Walz out to be some progressive superhero that he is. And look, he did some okay stuff in Minnesota. Give credit where it's due. He's done some okay stuff in his state. Sure. But dude, he also, when it comes to policing, he leaves a lot to be desired. When it comes to foreign policy, he leaves a lot to be desired. When it comes to pipelines, he leaves a lot to be desired, which goes into climate change. And turns out he's not that great of a debater either. So he's not, this far left superhero necessarily. And then you have the political fan fiction on the other side, which I think we're seeing more of that than we saw in the past, because we had about 8 years of Trump delusion syndrome where they made it out like everything was hunky-dory before Trump showed up, which is delusional. Now we're seeing the overcorrection for that, where you have a bunch of people pretending that Trump is something he isn't and pretending he's way less dangerous than he actually is.
Yes. It's both. I will quote one of my favorite movies in Apocalypse Now is that, the bullshit stacks so high in Vietnam, you need wings to stay above it. And that's America. The political, it is so, like you say, I don't know where to begin. The depiction of Kamala Harris from the Republicans and Trump is like, I wish her and Biden were communists and socialists. I wish they were
too.
like, let's be real here. Ronald Reagan would get kicked out of the Republican Party for being a hippie. If he was in the Democratic Party today, he'd be center left. He would be like on a lot of issues.
It is so nuts.
It's like he was really awful with AIDS, and he was really decimated the gay community. And that's the one thing he's super right wing on. But if you look he was for Medicare for all. He had a great immigration policy by comparison. It's like,
he was still right wing in every sense of it. But compared to where we're at, that's a testament to how freaking far right we are. Like we are. And sometimes even people from other countries don't realize it. Like they don't realize how fringe the United States is. I was talking to a friend of mine in England, and I'm like, dude, our Democrats are to the right of your Tories in many cases.
Yes.
Like we're
I've had
to
many
the right.
people. Many people in other countries say, oh, Graham, you're Democratic Party. Like many Australians said that to me. I had a German guy say, you know, Bernie Sanders is to the right of Angela Merkel when she was in power. He's like, she's the right-wing party in Germany, and Bernie Sanders is to the right of her.
It's so nuts.
Bernie Sanders, the crazy lefty, he's like a moderate centrist in Europe.
He's at most a social democrat over there.
At most.
Like it's like some people realize that, and then some people don't. I mean, I had someone in Europe go, well, Kamala Harris is basically a social democrat. I'm like, no, she is far to the right of a social democrat by every metric, far to the right.
No.
You know, I mean, it's just remarkable. And you know, when we say this stuff, it's not because, you know, we just want our point of view parroted. It's because we're facing a catastrophe. And without bold policy change, we're really effed. And we have a country where the Overton window is so far to the right, they had to purchase a new camera frame multiple times just within the past 4 years. And it's gotten us to the point. And when I meet people who have right-wing political views or these like, oh, just let corporations do whatever they want, like a full-blown libertarian, whatever, I can't help but just ask them, like, what about this looks good to you? Because this is what you want. This is the world you want. We have it right now.
Yeah.
So what about this looks good to you? What about this?
I mean, I just was critical of Elon Musk a couple of days ago on Twitter, and, you know, some Bitcoin bros got all mad and defended him. I'm like, why are you defending this awful dude? Like, if he did something and you died from it, he wouldn't care. Like, but people are suckers. People just want to pick a team, and they're suckers. I don't know. They're just, I don't know if it's just a flaw in human beings of people wanting, it's just inherent in human being. But the tribalism, my team good, your team bad, that's just been with us since the dawn of time. I don't know what it is, but nobody wants to learn. Nobody wants to learn in this country. Nobody wants to say I was wrong. No. And the way people think these candidates, they take them on like personally, like they're my friend. It's like they don't care about you at all. Like they at all. They and it's people get all offended. It's astonishing to watch, and I have less and less faith in the human race.
Well, yeah, and part of it is just our thought leadership is just so effed here. I mean, and it gives us people like Elon Musk. And so let's go to the super chats, shall we, Colin? Yeah, let's go to the super chats here as we are winding down. Emily Sigmund, what's up? Gifted 10 member. Oh my God, thank you so much, Emily Sigmund. Shout out to Emily. Gifted 10 memberships. Level, fight the power. It's a level. And again, if you are so able, statuscoup.com/join. For just $5 a month, you help fund on the ground journalism. Despot Fleisch, what's up, man? Good to hear from you. T-shirt tech suggestion. I'm an EPA official. If you hear me saying that everything is fine, run like hell. No kidding. The EPA has been bought out. It's so sad to see. So thank you for that, Despot Fleisch. Good to see you again. Teresa, how are you? Good to see we got the government secrets guy on the day they couldn't do a government secrets. Looking out for you. Hi, Ron. Hi, Teresa. Good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Always great to see you. Half-Life Wife. Status Quo is the only YouTube channel I've been able to find that is comprehensively covering these increasing environmental catastrophes. And I want to know, are any wildlife reports of evident harm coming in? Thanks. I bet it's only a matter of time, Half-Life. I bet it's only a matter of time before that stuff starts pouring in. I don't know what type of direct on-the-ground plan Status Coup does or doesn't have, but I know that there is probably something brewing, but probably can't speak on it yet. But yeah, thank you for that Super Chat contribution. Tyler, what's up? Member for 14 months. Thank you so much for that, Tyler. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tyler. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out. Always good to see you. Cyber Hobbit. We are a failed species. Solid opener. Love it. We are a failed species. We suck. Ditto on everything you're saying, Graham. Great show, Ron. Take care. Thank you for that, Cyber Hobbit. We always bring the hope for everybody. Des Bush Fleisch again.
Buy Bitcoin. There it
oh,
is.
there you go. You got it, man.
You want hope? Buy Bitcoin.
There you go. You got it in. That's, man, somebody would have only drank like one time. That's you've changed.
There was no Bitcoin talk or crypto talk in the debate.
There were no stories. Yeah, that didn't come up. What do you think would have happened if it would have?
Well, Trump is launching his Trump altcoin, NFT, whatever. It's just some stupid shit coin because Trump doesn't know what he's doing and he's just a grifter. And then I'm sure if that would have happened, they would have said, Trump's coin is amazing and it'll help prevent Democrats from eating babies or whatever. And then Tim Walz would have probably repeated some dumb Liz Warren type thing of like, crypto's bad. Bitcoin is going to, it funds drug dealers or whatever. And it would have been a stupid conversation, just like all the other topics.
Or he would have said something like, we don't eat babies in Minnesota. And then just, that would have been it.
Right.
He just would have. Despush Fleisch, you're back. A huge problem is lowered living standards and working poor. People don't have time to think politics through. Oh, absolutely. Which leads to rigid partisan opinions and working backwards from conclusions. Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And that's by design. I mean, it's by design. They want people working 2 and 3 jobs. They want people one paycheck away from going under because, yeah, you don't really have the bandwidth to civically engage when you're in that situation. And also, you don't have the bandwidth to strike or protest. You don't really have any collective power when you are one paycheck away from going under. And that's by design. That's why in other countries where they have better social safety nets and they have, better social mobility, guess what? They strike. They strike. When you piss them off, they freaking strike. When they're not getting what they deserve, they strike. And guess what they have? A way higher standard of living.
Well,
still
their
got
healthcare,
problems.
sure.
Still got problems.
Their healthcare isn't tied to their job, so they're not afraid. And that's a good point. And I will add this to put a caveat on my tirade. The reason people are on pick these teams and make these dumb decisions is it's designed for this. The ruling elites want everybody on a side fighting and not paying, and they make it so you don't have time to pay attention. You're working too hard to pay attention. When there's a natural disaster, you don't know there's no time to really pay attention. You have to really spend a lot of time to find a show like this and watch it and listen to it. Whereas you really only have time probably to watch 20 minutes of headline news while you're having breakfast in the morning before you run off to work. And you and your spouse both have to work, your kids, it's by design to keep people misinformed, but but you also could learn, you could spend a little more time, America.
But America, come on.
But America, come on.
Come on. Let's, come on. By the way, shout out to Zainab Days in the chat. Shout out to Zainab. Shout out to Chris Garrett. Do we have any more super chats, Colin?
That was all of them.
Right on. Graham, where can everyone go to learn more about you and to invest in your altcoin?
GrahamElwood.com. I've started to slowly revamp my show and turn it into the Bitcoin Vigilante, where I'm going to still talk politics, but through the lens of Bitcoin. I'll cover this train wreck of a election for the next 34 days. I'm also, I have a Christmas album that's coming out in November, which will be very exciting. I'm working on a book about Bitcoin that'll be coming out. But just go to GrahamElwood.com. I'm at Graham Elwood on all social media. And please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel because I've been censored and demonetized and all this other crap.
There you go. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. You can find me at Ron Placone on all socials, ronplacone.com. Subscribe to my podcast, 1000 with Ron Placone, wherever you get your podcasts or here on YouTube. And I should have some news about my movie Left It Wall. We wrapped up the screening series. Graham's in the movie. He's hilarious. You got a lot of laughs in London, by the way.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Your movie's a blast.
Yeah. So we wrapped up the screening series. It ended in London a couple weeks ago. So I should have some news on a full-fledged digital release very, very soon. And I'll, of course, be letting everyone know. And shout out to Colin on the ones and twos. If you can, please join us here at Status Coup, statuscoup.com/join. And